Have you ever wondered why sometimes you give great service and sometimes your service isn't so great? Watch this episode and find out why. And please hit that subscribe button down below so you get more updates from me in the future. Welcome to the second edition of Wine with the Realtor. I'm Josh Arantia, Realtor here in Tehachapi, California with Country Real Estate. And today, let's talk about why sometimes you give great customer service and why sometimes maybe the client thinks you don't. Well, it's actually pretty easy. So we talk a lot about setting expectations, right? Preloading the client with the process. This can be more difficult though than it seems. Sounds pretty easy on the surface. So I currently have two transactions going on, right? They're as different as this bottle of red wine, this bottle of white wine, right? One of them thinks I'm giving them tremendous service right now, over and above. The other one, not so much. I don't, like when that happens, but there were definitely some pitfalls that I didn't navigate correctly in the very beginning that set me on this course. So anytime you're dealing with people in a service-oriented industry, those people come into that situation with a target of what they believe the service should be. That's their expectation. And if you're not getting a clear idea of what that target area is, and you're delivering your service the same way, you're either going to overshoot that, which is, going over and beyond and getting great feedback, or you're going to undershoot that. And even though you're still giving that same level of service you always do, you're going to get a bad review, or your client's going to say, hey, you didn't do your job right, I'm not happy. Right? It's very rare that you tag it right there. Like, how many times have you been to a restaurant and you were like, yeah, it was what I expected. Or it's exactly what I expected. That was great. It's what I expected. No, typically you're like, nah, service was like so-so. Food was, it was okay. Or, wow, that was amazing. The service was fantastic tonight. The food was great tonight. So people usually either overshoot or undershoot the client's expectations. Okay, so the question is, how do you take the sweet spot of the client and widen it so that you have a bigger target to hit with your service? And again, that goes back to taking the time to get to know the client, using empathy, understanding their needs, their wants, their desires, right? Having that conversation, being transparent about what the transaction's like, what the process is like, what your service is like, and what you are willing to deliver. Because that's where it comes down to the basic, this is their expectation, and this is what you're willing to deliver. And where are you? Are you meeting? Are you overshooting? Are you under-delivering? So obviously, overshooting the client's expectations is what you're trying to do. And there's a few different factors that are involved in that. It's possible that maybe the client's expectations just weren't that high coming into the relationship, or maybe they didn't know what to expect, like a first-time buyer, for example, wouldn't know what to expect, so therefore it's easier to overshoot those. Or the third way, which is what I suggest that you do, if you're transparent about what you're going to provide and you lay it out all on the line there, and you're setting what I call reasonable expectations, letting them know what you're willing to do, it could be that they lower a little bit, right? Or that they widen, like their soft spot, their sweet spot gets bigger, so it's easier for you to hit that target. Okay, when you undershoot, that's usually a product of not having those communications in place, not having taken the time to get to know what they're expecting. So they could be, what you would consider a high maintenance. I don't necessarily like calling people high maintenance, but they could be that type of client who has very high expectations. You've never told them what you're willing to provide as far as service goes, so their expectation remains really high, or their sweet spot is very narrow, and you end up undershooting them, right? Under-deliver, you underperform, they get upset, and gosh, when that happens, next thing you know, you're doubting yourself and you're wondering why you're even in this business, right? Because most of us are here because we love to help people. And if if we're not having those conversations and putting expectations in what we're willing to provide as service, if we're not lining those up and we can constantly, consistently under deliver, it's gonna be a very, very long career, So the point here is, use empathy and communication, right? Talk to your people, figure out what they really need, what they really, really want. Then be transparent and honest with them. This is what I'm willing to do. No, I'm not willing to take calls on Sunday at 10 o'clock at night, if that's you. Or I'm not willing to do 25 open houses. I have family time. Let them know, right? I mean, if you don't tell people that you're not willing to do certain things, then when they expect them and you under-deliver, you're going to end up with a bad relationship. You're going to end up with bad service, right? So if they know, if you come up out front and say, okay, great, I hear what you're saying. You're saying that you want this, but I don't do this, I don't do that, but I will do this and I will do that, right? You don't always want to package it with a negative, all the I don'ts, but I'm not willing to do this, but I am willing to do that. And try to align those two, right? Expectations to service, or other way, whatever it is, but it's usually in this direction, right? Expectations are higher in your service. Align those two as much as possible. Be upfront, get it all out on the table, put it all out there, build that game plan that we talked about earlier in the last video, right? Making sure you have a game plan built, and that way you are going to meet or exceed their expectations of you more often than not. It's only like 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I'm not going to start day drinking today. But we do have a client who has a closing. They're getting this great house here in Bear Valley Springs, has a little wine locker, a little wine cooler in it, which is empty, and I want to make sure that they don't come home when they get their keys today to a house without wine. So we're going to be bringing over these two. This is a Sauvignon Blanc. This is a white wine. This one's from France, from the Loire Valley. Sauv Blancs from France have a tendency to be more mineral in flavor. People talk about minerality. So not super cut grassy or like straw like you would find in New Zealand. This one's going to be more of kind of a citrus lemon curd, kind of like a lemon pudding, and some minerality. So gravel, like if you ever taken gravel and grind it up in your hands, or oyster shells, do the same thing, right? Not ocean like salt water, but like the shells. So the minerality on this, great. A lot of acidity. This one's going to make your jowls kind of tighten up a little bit. Great served chilled on a hot day, but just an all-around classic old world French white wine. So old world, just for those who don't know, wines from regions that have been making wine for a very long time. So you have France, Italy, Germany. Those are the Austria. Those are like the big main ones. Spain, and then you have New World, right? California, so the United States, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. I'm trying to think what else off the top of my head. Yeah, that covers it. You get the idea. Old world style usually tend to be more about the terroir, or the earth, the soil, where New World tends to be more about the fruit, the ripeness of the grape. So switching to New World, this is a Turley. Turley is a California wine. This one's from Napa Valley. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon. This is a 2016 Turley, big wine producer in the state of California. They have vineyards pretty much going up and down from the central coast all the way up to Northern California. They predominantly known for their Zinfandels. If you go to any of their tasting rooms, sometimes they can have as many as 12, 13, 14 Zins there in the room to taste. And I've heard that they have upwards of 30 plus different types of Zinfandels in their lineup. Cab, still classic California wine. So this is going to be bigger, but not going to be huge. They're not big fruit bomb and super big tannins. So this one's be pretty easy to drink. I'd say kind of medium to heavy weight on the mouth. A little bit of flavors of dark red fruits, and the tannins on this one are pretty mild. This is not going to be one that sucks all the liquid, all the moisture out of your mouth. Very drinkable, very approachable Cabernet. So to my clients who trusted me to get them through this transaction, I think this one was only about 25 days long or so. Very quick, very efficient. To their new home, these 2 bottles of wine. And the success on this one, again, was set by being very transparent about the process, what my level of service will be, and setting our expectations right from the get-go. It's always great when you're going to hand the keys to your client and you know they're going to give you a hug and they're going to thank you. I think he already said today, you've blessed us with our first house. So these are the feelings right here. If I could take what's going to happen today at 5:30 when I go to give these guys the keys, the emotion that's going to be in that moment, if I could put that in a box and sell it, I'd be a millionaire. That's why we do this business, is going to be for this moment that is about an hour and a half away, 2 hours away from right now. As I prepare for it, I'm going to get emotional, but that's why we do this job, is for days like this. So again, real quick, just to recap on expectations, set them ahead of time, communicate. Now guys, this is not just real estate and transactions, this is relationships, this is parenting, this is your relationship with your parents or being a parent to a child. This is as simple as going into a restaurant or going to buy a car. Every transaction, every time we interact with people, from very mundane things to very intense life experiences, there's already a predetermined set of expectations in your head, and there's a level of willingness of what you will do. And if you can't align those things as much as possible before going into that situation, you're going to end up with less than satisfactory results. The more you can align those things, the higher chance that you're going to have a positive outcome.